You're watching Boston Celtics today. Harrison Graham and Chase Sr. Day 5 of NBA free agency is well underway. Subscribe if you want more Celtics news and rumors. YouTube.com/CelticsTV. A lot of storylines to get into. Let's talk about Lauri Markkanen first, Chase. A lot of buzz about what his future could look like. Could he land with the Boston Celtics?
Let's preface all of this by saying that Lauri Markkanen is a restricted free agent, so that impacts things. Either Lauri could maybe sign with the Celtics in free agency, or it would have to be via trade. But Markkanen has requested a trade according to his agent, and Markkanen did say this, quote, "We have offers from several different teams. I want a fresh start to my NBA career." And I think when you look at the Celtics roster, they could really use him. One, they don't have a stretch big on that team right now. Two, they've been somewhat weak at the center position, and Lauri Markkanen can kind of fulfill both roles for Boston. This is still a really young player who has a lot of upside. And in terms of roster fit, I don't hate Lauri Markkanen as a stretch big who can knock down some tray balls, mix it up a little bit down low, alongside guys like Jason Tatum as well as Jaylen Brown. The one concern with Markkanen, especially him being a big man, he's been somewhat brittle throughout his career so far. He's been in the league for 4 years, and over the last 3 years, he's missed at least 20 games during that span. But in terms of the player, I do like Markkanen in terms of modern-day value because he can knock down some threes at an efficient rate for a big guy. And on the Celtics roster right now, you ain't counting on Enes Kanter to knock down triples. That's for damn sure.
Yeah, that ain't it for me. Look, I wouldn't mind this at all. I think that Lauri Markkanen still – his best basketball is ahead of him. He's a guy who can space the floor. He can shoot the three. He needs to be a better rebounder overall, but with his ability to score the basketball, that has been something that is very, very impressive early on in his career. What became clear is once they traded for Nikola Vucevic in Chicago, Chase, those two couldn't coexist. That's why he's gone public and said, hey, I want out of Chicago. I want a fresh start. And a team like Boston, someone we've talked about for months, needing bigs. Enes Kanter ain't it. Like, bench guy, okay. Lauri Markkanen, you plug him into your starting lineup. We saw what he did a couple of years ago, and we saw this guy really have high potential. The problem is he's kind of flatlined here.
Yeah, no, Markkanen a couple years ago was a really good player, and the problem with him, again, it comes back to injuries. But 2018-19 season, you're looking at a big man who's still in his early approaching his mid-20s, who's averaging around 19 points per game, nearly a double-double that season. But unfortunately, I should say, for the Bulls as well as Markkanen, those numbers have dipped the past couple of seasons, and he's become more injury-prone during that time. And this past year, only 26 games, lingering issues, some of them lower body. With a big man, when you have lower body injuries, I definitely get concerned about that. But 40% three-point guy as a big this past year, albeit in 26 games, I don't hate it in terms of fit, again, on this roster. Have to emphasize that point.
Would you like Lauri Markkanen in Boston? Type Y for yes. Type in for no. Get your votes in on this one. We will make this the pinned comment on today's video, so go ahead and get your votes in. How about going after Dennis Schroder? Spent last year with the Lakers. We do not expect him to be back there. Jake Fischer has reported of Bleacher Report a couple of times now, Chase, there have been some conversations between the two parties. Don't expect him to get the bag he was hoping for, but could be a win-win for both sides because the Celtics still need a point guard.
Yeah, according to Brian Windhorst, several months ago, Dennis Schroder had turned down a 4-year, $84 million contract extension with the Los Angeles Lakers. I can guarantee you this, Celtics fans, if you're worried about Dennis Schroder getting the bag, he ain't getting 4 years, $84 million from Boston. One, they don't have that money. Two, Brad Stevens is smart enough to know that he is not worth that. Talks ongoing, according to Jake Fischer. He's kind of alluded to that a couple of times throughout free agency, that there's been communication between Schroeder as well as the Boston Celtics. And there's no doubt that the Celtics need a point guard. But with these recent reports that are just coming down over the last couple of minutes about the Celtics maybe offering Marcus Smart a contract extension, which we'll get to here in just a moment, I'm not sure if that takes them out of the running for Dennis Schroeder. Maybe Schroeder is going to be their sixth man, hyper scorer coming off the bench because I think he fits better in that role, and Marcus Smart is your starting point guard who definitely gives you much more defensively. But Dennis Schroder, really just an okay player. For me, very frustrating to watch because he is so inconsistent.
Should the Celtics sign Dennis Schroder? Type 1 for yes, type 2 for no. Let us know how you guys or what you guys think about this one. I'm not a huge Schroeder guy, but if the price is right, I don't mind it. 2 years ago, this was a 6th Man of the Year finalist. He can play, just got to rein in some of those tendencies a little bit. 1 for yes or 2 for no. Marcus Smart, could the Celtics give him a contract extension? Apparently, they have been discussing a 4-year, $77 million extension. The rumors around Smart have been all over the place, both with extension talks and potential trade talks as well.
Yeah, these rumors starting to circulate on Friday afternoon, so we're pivoting and bringing you this news right as it's happening because we're pivoting like Tim Duncan in the low post, giving it a little kiss off the glass for 2. But yeah, according to some reports out there, Marcus Smart and the Celtics have interest because Marcus Smart is going into the final year of his contract. And according to those aforementioned reports, it's looking like they might offer him an extension of 4 years, $77 million, which is interesting because there was a report that came out earlier this week in NBA free agency that Brad Stevens had grown frustrated with Smart's kind of inconsistent play. Because there's no doubt he has been somewhat of a maddening player. He gives you a bunch defensively. He gives you a lot in terms of intangibles, gives you a lot in terms of leadership. He really fits the mold of that Boston culture, and he's become beloved over time. 4 years, 77, though, that's a lot for a guy who's dipped off a little bit in terms of production, but playing the straight point guard role, could that help him a little bit, elevate his numbers? We'll see.
He fits the dog mentality that
no
Boston
question about
likes. That. The problem is at times the shot selection is brutal. So we saw this earlier today of a potential 4-year, $77 million, which would start in the 2022-2023 season. Mark Stein retweeted this, by the way, of Ryan McDonough's tweet. So this will be fascinating to see if this ends up playing out in the way it could. Backloaded deal as the cap would go up, obviously, as it typically always does. NBC Sports Boston had this quote: the Celtics can offer 4 years, starting at 120% of his salary. That prices out to $77.2 million over the 4 years. That would kick in at the start of 22-23. The extension shuffles Smart to his reported goal of 20-ish per million and offers long-term security for the 27-year-old guard. Listen, inconsistent player, Chase, but if you feel like you can't get a good piece in return for him, maybe you just keep him.
And he's going into the final year of his contract, as I mentioned. So what happens in terms of his value if you do want to trade him going into that expiring contract? With Marcus Smart, here's the deal. You always have to weigh the good and the bad. Let's first start off with the good. Intangibles, leadership, toughness, no fear, defense. Very good defensive player, and he is somewhat inconsistent offensively, which is why we go toward the bad. It's really the ineffectiveness from deep. And I'd like to see him become a more consistent player.
He's gotten better, but
a little bit better.
Selection at
the shot selection at times can be so frustrating. Sometimes I'm like, am I watching Marcus Smart play hero ball, or is this Russell Westbrook?
Yeah.
But I think some of the goods do outweigh the bad. And I think if you sit down with Marcus Smart and you're like, Marcus, we love you. You've meant so much to this organization as well as the city. If you play the primary point guard role and you're not jacking up shots from 30 feet because we don't need that with 15 seconds left on the shot clock, we'd love to have you back. And, in fact, we'll pay you a lot of money as well.
Yeah, so we'll see what happens here because this has been all over the place.
40% from the field last year.
That's
just not good enough for a guard.
2 years ago, he had a breakout year offensively, and he kind of reverted back. But you like the assist numbers. It's kind of as a part-time point guard. Could he become more of a true point guard, 7-8 assists a game? Maybe the points go down a bit and he's more of a distributor? That's something I could be interested in, especially if they don't sign a guy like Dennis Schroder. Should the Celtics extend Marcus Smart? Type E for extend or P for, it's too pricey for me. Let me know in the comments how you feel about this one. E for extend, or you can type P for pricey. So go ahead and let us know. And subscribe to our Celtics channel, youtube.com/CelticsTV. All right, one more story here, Chase. Bradley Beal. Could a trade not be dead after all?
Possibly. I think Bradley Beal is going to stay with Washington and the nation's capital for at least this upcoming season, maybe even leading up to the NBA trade deadline if we want to speculate about a Bradley Beal trade. But Hardwood Houdini did list 3 reasons why the Celtics should still trade for Beal and why it might be possible. But here's the thing. I'm kind of throwing water on the flames here. There's been no indication, Harrison, that Bradley Beal wants out of D.C.,
Yeah.
And I think they've done a decent job in free agency of not having as much of a top-heavy roster like they did with Russell Westbrook. It's more of a well-rounded roster right now around Bradley Beal.
I think a trade's more likely at the deadline because I think Beal, for whatever reason, he wants to give every opportunity to Washington to try and make this work. So maybe his attitude is, all right, we got Spencer Dinwiddie. Let's see how we start out. Let's see how this season goes.
Can
early
Kuzma
on.
revive himself?
Yeah,
Can Harrell be a 6th man again?
You've got more depth
Can
now in
KCP
Washington.
stretch the floor?
It's interesting.
Yeah.
I think, if they're 10 games below 500 at the deadline, then it's like, all right, I've given you every chance, right? Like if you're Bradley Beal, he doesn't owe Washington anything at this point, but for whatever reason, he wants to make it work there. Maybe he just loves being the number 1 guy. I don't really know, but look, there's always going to be rumors since him and Jason Tatum are good pals. So we'll ask you guys this question here on Boston Celtics Today. What do you guys think about a possible Bradley Beal trade? Let us know in the comments, T for trade or P for pass. We'll go ahead and ask you guys this question. Get subscribed to Celtics Today at youtube.com/CelticsTV because Chase, myself, hey, as the C's make moves, hopefully it heats up a little bit here, Chase.
Yeah, I mean, this Celtics channel has been growing like crazy. We just surpassed 7,000 subscribers. So help us get to 10K, man, because this is your hub for everything going on with the Celtics. There's been a lot of breaking news happening throughout this offseason for Boston. We've hit you with a video within the hour.
Yep.
So if you want more of that, youtube.com/CelticsTV.